Rise up!
This is the Rise Up See Red podcast, all about the Arizona Cardinals and the NFL, featuring insider and outsider perspectives. Enjoy the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Now here are your hosts, Jess Root and Seth Cox.
Hello, Arizona Cardinals fans, and welcome to the latest edition of the Rise Up See Red podcast, the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. I'm your host, Jess Root from cardswire.com, USA Today's NFL Wire site, covering, of course, your Arizona Cardinals as we record episode 777. And this is our draft, the first of two draft review shows. Joining me, as he almost always does, is Seth Cox, my co-host from revengeofthebirds.com, SB Nation's Arizona Cardinals site. And Seth, the draft is over. The Cardinals made a splash. They didn't do one thing. The Rams made a splash, and but they're not any better, are they? They're not any better. No one thinks they're any better than they were.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing, right? Is like typically you come out of the draft and you feel, especially when you're drafting high, right? Third overall, top 5 anyways. You feel like you've done something. For the Cardinals, it feels like they did nothing. And more interesting than that, Jess, to me, is that it didn't change any of the markets in a positive. FanDuel kept their over/under at 4.5 wins. They're under 4.5, minus 140. So again, this isn't our gambling show. So for those of you that may not partake, you would have to bet $140 to win $100. The over went from plus 115 just to plus 120. So a slight bump, not much. The juice, as they say, went up just a...
It's less likely that they're going to win over that.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, they are the after their draft picks, what we're going to focus on in this show. We're focusing on day 1 and day 2. So we're going to discuss the stuff that happened in round 1 and round 2. And we will discuss the rounds 1, 2, and 3. We will discuss the day 3 picks and the potential impact that they'll have in our next show. But we're going to talk about overall reaction. We're going to talk about Jeremiyah Love. We're going to talk about Chase Bisontis, Carson Beck, Ty Simpson, who didn't end up going, but and all the implications for that. And I was surprised. I was mildly surprised that it happened. But the Cardinals stood pat, and I guess they kept it quiet long enough that no one, like it happened, wasn't in the last 2 weeks that the chatter about Jeremiyah Love began. First it was a voice, and then it became they're definitely doing it if they couldn't trade. And I don't know if it was what they were asking, because Monty Austinford, after round 1, said that they never had anything of substance when it came to trading down in round 1. And didn't it feel like us? It felt like to me at least, that was priority number 1. They wanted to trade back. And that didn't happen. And apparently nothing really of substance happened, because we heard that the Saints wanted to move up, that the Chiefs wanted to move up. Although the report that came out on draft day is that they were looking, and they did move up, but that moving up to 3 was a little rich. And so it felt like while the Cardinals wanted to move back, or made people think they wanted to move back, they were only going to do it for a haul like back in 2023.
Well, and what's interesting, Jess, is I text you guys, and I don't get a ton of information. So, a lot of my contacts were during the Bruce Arians era, and as such, they they were interns, they had or entry level scouts type of thing, and those were guys I spoke to, and where I could get some information from every once in a while. And what was interesting is I text you guys the other day, or before the draft, and I just said, the one thing I've heard is that they don't like anything that they've been offered. Like, it didn't mean that it wasn't going to happen or anything like that, but it just made a lot of sense, right? Based on what we've heard about this draft class and what we've heard about what their intentions were, and so on and so forth. And so it made a lot of sense, Jess, that they looked at the third overall pick and they go, look, if you want number 3, we want X, Y, Z. If we don't get X, Y, and Z, we're not moving because we like a guy enough. And then it obviously became apparent that they liked Jeremiyah Love. I don't know if that was, leaking that was slight a gamesmanship to see if somebody would trade in front of them to get Love.
It always felt like that they were, the chatter about Jeremiyah Love was trying to drum up trade interest. That's what it felt like.
And so obviously they did like Love, and now they'll always come out right. They're always every team's always going to come out and be like,
there was the top guy on our board.
This we were never moving down. Like, this is the guy we've wanted. It's like, and I don't remember who it was, so I don't want to take credit for this. It might have been Kyle Odegaard. It could have just been one of the very many brilliant followers that we have on X. But somebody said, if you truly were infatuated with Love from the beginning, then your entire free agency did not make sense at all. Right? Like,
right.
Why would you go sign Tyler Algier to now a fairly expensive running back 2 contract to come in for 2 years to probably be the 40% in a 60-40 split rookie year, all things ideally, right? Obviously we can't predict the future, but all things ideally, and then probably be the 25% and the 75-25 split guy is year 2. Let's be honest, Jess, that's a lot of money for a running back 2 now. And so like it does make sense that their ultimate goal from jump was, hey, let's trade down. And again, the contact I have works in Kansas City, not for the team, but around the team in the media, and basically told me, like, Kansas City had said they would do X, the Cardinals said we want Y, and they could never make anything happen. And so I will say this, Jess. Kudos, right? Like, if you set a price, the last thing you want to do as an organization is panic and trade and lose the value that you think is there. Whether or not it's there is irrelevant, but the value you believe in. So I will give them absolute 100% kudos for that. The other thing that we have to acknowledge, and I know we'll talk about this, but unless they move down to 9 in that scenario and then took Ty Simpson, there was no world in which they were getting Ty Simpson.
Right.
So now taking Jeremiyah Love, getting the guy that you value as the best player in the draft. I think he was the consensus 3rd overall player on the consensus board. That's good. You got the right value for the pick. And that's a big thing, because when you look at everything in a vacuum, the reality just becomes that the Cardinals probably only got value at 2 picks in this draft, right?
Yeah. At least from our perspective, the consensus board, and many of you probably have seen the kind of ranting that was going on. Bucky Brooks talked about, consensus boards, how it's unfair to, like, it's not unfair. I'll say, we all know we don't have all the information, but the information that we have, the consensus boards, which might be the fairest way to do it, is to take all of the analysts' rankings and mock drafts and build it based on that to get a general perceived value. Obviously, teams have more information. We know that. And unless teams are going to make all of their information public, which they're never going to do, this is the best that we've got. And, Blake made a great point. It's like, the teams can't, you can't hype up the draft and have this whole big draft with mock drafts everywhere, like both big draft guys, little draft guy, and then not take the smoke. I mean, you're gonna get criticized. You can't worry about what we think. I know, and who cares? Who cares about that? Owners care. The owners, like Michael Bidwill, cares what people think about the Cardinals draft picks. But ultimately, value matters, and that's all. Like, draft grades are based on value versus need versus available players on the board at the time, and so that made sense as well. So I felt the Cardinals did get good value from Jeremiyah Love with that pick. But it's interesting. Do you think, and I'll pose this question, if Arvell Reese had gone second overall, would the pick have been Bailey or Love?
Here's the thing. Again, this is in a vacuum. You have to look at everything. The reality of the situation is this: taking Jeremiyah Love, and people are really, Cardinals fans are really passionate about this, but again, it makes sense. Taking Jeremiyah Love, 3rd overall, is roster construction malpractice. And the reason the reason why isn't because of the talent. I think people are misconstruing that talent versus what the contract is. The contract is literally not figuratively, not hyperbole, not anything. Literally the most guaranteed money in NFL history for a running back.
Correct.
There'll
be more than $53 million fully guaranteed. Saquon Barkley on his second contract, his big contract, got $36 million. And his per year average puts him 7th among running backs in the NFL before he even takes the field. But in fairness, whatever position that would have been the case. But that's why people say you go premium position, you go quarterback, you go tackle, you go edge, corner, and receiver. That's why you do that top 10.
And so, I think I saw it as like it would have been edge 40 or something like that in the contract. And what people misconstrue about the whole situation is this, Jess. It also puts just a unfair reality on Jeremiyah Love.
Oh, that's like
you have to be a top 7 running back from jump.
Look at how Ashton Genty last year. People thought and we're going to go back. The name that it came up. Let's go back 11 years. Melvin Gordon. Remember when he got drafted by the Chargers? And that was a middle of the 1st round pick.
Yeah.
And that first year, people called him a bust because he struggled his rookie year. He turned out to be pretty damn good running back. But in year 1, he was already a bust. And The Cardinals are in a tough situation, but like, love the talent. I mean, that's great. Now here's the thing that's interesting. Looking at the running, how the draft went overall, we felt that as the free agency went, that they got a little bit better at running back, and that was about it. And now they added another running back, and that they made their running back a little bit better, but none of the other positions feel better. And so
Yep.
in free agency and the draft, the two things that they've done, they've upgraded the running back room and nowhere else on the roster.
Yeah, and so you look at it, and by the way, Melvin Gordon was the 15th overall pick, to your point, right? And so it's just a situation, Jess, where the value of the position and the idea of having a cost controlled player is now gone. And it's not a shot at Jeremiyah Love. Nobody is questioning the talent of the player. The reality is you have a guy that is now, like you said, from day one, the 7th highest paid player at his position in the NFL. And so you're not getting a value. Like, even if you get a Pro Bowl level running back,
it's like a second contract. This running back contract, this rookie running back contract, is like a star second running back contract.
And by the way, and nobody's even talked about this, but this was one of my thoughts. How does that affect his second contract?
Because he's resetting the market. He's resetting the market.
He's 100
resets the running back market today,
because he 100% wants more than he got as a rookie if he plays up to his contract, right? And so,
yeah, totally.
And so you're talking about his AAV going up and his guaranteed money going up. Like, that's another aspect to it that nobody talks about, but whatever. What are you going to do? But that's the thing. I want to emphasize on my board, my actual board, I didn't even grade Fernando Mendoza. No offense, I genuinely don't care. He could be excellent. He could be awful. He's good. I believe it. But this is what the problem was. So this was my board. Bain was one. I understand there's an outlier situation with the arm length. You've got a incident that he's not blamed for, but every team's vetted on.
It's a thing.
But it's still a thing. Caleb Downs was number 2. Sonny Styles was 3. Jeremiyah Love was 4. I don't think that's bad, right? Like, but you look at all of those players outside of Bain, nobody plays the premier position, right? So, like, you were in the situation where the premier players in this draft, David Bailey, went before him. Everybody else had question marks or metrics issues, and so the next guys were, for me, Downs, Styles, and Love. So you pick the one that, let's be a little bit honest here, moves the needle the most. Picking Sonny Styles, especially for the Cardinals, doesn't do anything, right?
It doesn't. And I hate that they keep saying this, and we've talked about it, how the Cardinals have no juice. This will give them some juice. They needed some pizzazz. I'm like, that's what you're driving. That feels it. And regardless of the talent of Love, when you talk like that, feels like when you're signing Emmitt Smith in 2002.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the reality of it. That's where we're at. I don't think we're unhappy. I just think that we look at it and we go, yeah, it was what it was. Like, it wasn't, it was probably the best pick they could have made by staying put at 3.
Yeah, well, here's the thing that for me that came down to this, and because I based on what we knew, would have still taken Arvell Reese, but as we find out that Reese doesn't appear to, and I'm guessing this was the thing with the Cardinals, wasn't viewed as a true edge. And if it would have been one thing, because you got David Bailey, edge. Arvell Reese is maybe edge. Like he can do edge things, but the way that the Giants apparently are going to use him is to, be basically Micah Parsons in the beginning. And Micah Parsons was not a full-time defensive end until a couple years in. And when Micah Parsons was drafted, he was drafted, he was an off-ball, he was an elite off-ball backer. And so the Giants, so they have Abdul Carter, who transitioned from off the ball to edge before his last year at Penn State and then was dominant off the edge. You have Arvell Reese, and it looks like they're going to put him kind of in a Micah Parsons, like Mac Wilson in 2024 type role, where he's going to be off the ball but do a lot of pass rushing. And if that was the view of Reese, especially his first couple of years in the league, it now is understandable why he didn't go as quickly as many believed he would, because he's not a true premium edge. And if the Cardinals had viewed him that way, I would have thought that they would have taken Reese. But if they had any question as to whether he could be a full-time edge, I now understand why they took Love over him.
Right, and I would agree with that.
And, interesting thing, and something my son was pointing out, that Love has that a lot of big-time running backs don't have coming out of college. He's got pretty fresh legs. The most carries he's had was last year, and it was 199. And, in hindsight, having a guy like Tyler Algier, probably not a bad idea. So whether or not they had Love on their radar when free agency came around, I'm guessing not, because when they go out and go into free agency, they don't have their draft board anywhere near done. Not at all.
Right. And that's the reality of it, right? Like, it makes it really tough to make decisions because you're planning for what you want to do and you can't wait.
Yeah. And so having a guy like Tyler Algier now, Adam Schefter called it, and I'm gonna agree. The biggest loser in the draft this year, it was Tyler Algier, who thought he was coming to Arizona to be a starter, to be a featured back or near featured back. He's getting paid like a near feature back, the $6+ million per year, but he's getting paid $7 million cash this year, fully guaranteed. And now he's back to being Tyler Algier behind Bijan Robinson. And that's, although for the Cardinals, this is wise, because a guy who hasn't had 250 carries in a season, hopefully they don't ask Jeremiyah Love to have 250 carries in a season as a rookie when you've got the combination of Tyler Algier and James Conner. Although it makes it very, very interesting because, and Adam Schefter's thing sort of made it clear that Algier sort of expected to be the lead back. And so if Conner was still going to have that lead back-ish, I was joking that Tyler Algier just became a very expensive Amari DiMercado, because he does have the same skill set as DiMercado as well, because he's reliable, he can block, he can catch the ball and stuff like that. But James Conner, if that's the case, and James Conner is going to have a very different role this year. Like James Conner, third down back. Who would have thought?
Well, and the reality is this, Jess, and I looked at this pretty heavily. The idea of like Love coming out and getting 300+ touches, I mean, it's great in theory, but we rarely see rookie running backs specifically, do that and then come back and have a great second season, right? So maybe it's not the best idea ever to come out and give this guy 20+ touches a game as a rookie.
No. And it'd be interesting to see if they do use him the way Mel Kiper suggests, that he will be more than a running back, but an offensive weapon. Line him out wide, line out in the slot, which I know some running backs will often do. They have packages where they do that. But it'll be interesting to see how they, or if he is given, if he begins the season where Algier is taking the bulk of the carries and Love is in on certain, it'll be interesting to see how they work him in. But let's move on, talk a little bit. Coming next on our Red podcast, with our Cardinals talking. Let's talk about the quarterback we thought the Cardinals were going to get, but didn't. Being they never had a chance. That's coming next on Rise Up See Red. We're back on the Rise Up See Red podcast, with our Cardinals talking. We believed, and everyone believed, that the Cardinals were in on Ty Simpson. They never had a chance. The Rams were always going to get him, and from what it sounded like, they weren't going to have to trade up in the first round to get him. Apparently, was it?
No, man, and that's what not that I wanted to move down or anything like that, but I do think it would have been really fun and interesting to see what on earth would happen if the Cardinals traded back to 9. Would there have been this oh crap moment from the Rams? Or would they have been able to and comfortable to say, all right, Cardinals, prove it, right? Like, prove that you're going to do it, because we don't believe you. We don't buy that you're going to do it. And so, like, that's what makes it really fun to me, in that scenario, is like, what were the actual plans?
Yeah. Right? And we always questioned the hype around Simpson for the Cardinals simply on a physical traits level, based on what we know about what Mike LaFleur has said and has since said draft. It makes me wonder if the Cardinals were ever really that much on Simpson, like whether they even believed, like maybe they would have taken him at 34, maybe.
Right. So, you look at it, it's a really interesting dynamic, but I think overall, the way it played out, how things went, it became the way it needed to go for the Cardinals. Simpson, we talked about this, right? Especially when the Love Simpson stuff came down and people started going, oh man, the Cardinals need to draft both Jeremiyah Love and Ty Simpson. And you and I were kind of like, man, it's a lot to invest in year one for a part-time player and a backup quarterback. Now, obviously, you don't draft in a vacuum for a season, but you and I also have I don't say issue. It's probably an issue, but an issue with the fact that the GM's still around, and then he's making picks for 2027 and beyond, which it does seem like he did anyways, right? But thankfully it wasn't Ty Simpson, because I think that for you and I would have been almost a bridge too far, right? Like, what are you doing? Like, you haven't drafted well at all. Like, you have 0 Pro Bowl picks in your draft history, and now you're drafting a running back and a backup quarterback. Like, what is happening, right? But it didn't happen, so we can pass that frustration on. I did think the dynamic with the Sean McVay reaction / everything else, I did think that was interesting. Like, do you buy that wasn't his real reaction, and that he wanted Simpson all the way, or do you think that maybe he was a little, because I again, speculation, rumors, it's been, innuendos have been around that there's a reality that McVay and Stafford's careers are kind of tied together, right? That McVay may want to be done with the coaching aspect of things.
He thought about leaving after they won the Super Bowl the first time.
Right. And so it's like you do kind of wonder if he's looking at this going, man, I don't even know where Mekhi Lemon went, so I'm not going to act like I do. But like
I ended up going to Philly.
Okay, yeah, like in the 20s, yeah. So it's like,
Yes.
oh man, we could have got Mekhi Lemon, we could have got Vega Ione, all these guys, right? that have immediate impact on the game, and you get a guy in Ty Simpson who's basically, I'm not saying from a comparison, ability standpoint, but is basically Jordan Love, right? Like, oh, we went and got our replacement, and Sam Monson. I don't know where Sam's at now, if I'm being completely honest. But Sam Monson talked about it, and the reason it matters isn't, again, because of long term. Long term, a guy like Les Snead has to look at the long term of the team. A guy like Sean McVay, no offense, does not give a damn about the long term outlook of the team. He worries about 2026. And I thought Sam's post today on X, and then obviously he talked about it on the podcast, but the perfect parallel is when Green Bay drafted Jordan Love. They could have had T. Higgins. That year they lost by 5 in the NFC Championship game when Devontae Adams had 15 targets and the next Green Bay wide receiver had 6. Higgins had 900 yards as a rookie. Would he have been the difference? And that's basically the question, right? Like, if the Rams win a Super Bowl, none of it matters, right? Like, Les Need's a genius. Sean McVay's happy. Matthew Stafford retires, doesn't retire, it doesn't matter. But if they miss this window now, if they are like Green Bay in more ways than one and miss the window with Matthew Stafford, who has been, maybe the 3rd best quarterback in the NFL since he got traded to the Rams. And that might be, maybe the 4th, I mean, definitely top 5, right? So when you look at it and you go, let's go for it versus let's be ready for the future, it's a really difficult conversation to have. And I did think that Ty Simpson handled it well. Don't you? Like,
yeah,
he's an expert already, and that's coming from, he's a coach's son. He's been around the game for a really, really long time. So he's got all the lingo, and he knows what to say to make people happy and make people feel good in their tummies about what's going on. And
he also knows Stafford's an old quarterback. All it takes is one play and he's playing.
Right. And I did also actually like the fact that he, not directly, but very indirectly, threw some shade at the Cardinals. Right? Like, I wanted to be in a situation like LA. I think that's, I mean, let's be honest.
Getting drafted by a Super Bowl contending team drafting him in the top half of the first round, that does not happen very often. So yeah, very, very fortunate for him, and it's a good situation for us, because like we didn't think like, well, Ty Simpson, now granted, Ty Simpson would have gotten to play here, and we wondered if that was kind of the play for Jacoby Brissett, but it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. And I'll forever wonder how in the Cardinals were on, how in were they on Ty Simpson in the draft, or whether or not that was simply
bluster,
just bluster, like
just smoke to create this idea that that's what they were going to do.
Yeah. Let's move on. Coming on next on the Rise of Seer podcast, the best Air Cardinals talk on the web. Let's talk about the last two picks that they had for day two. So there are two day two picks: Chase Bisontis, Carson Beck. That's coming next on Rise of Seer Red. We're back on the Rise of Seer podcast, best Air Cardinals talk, and as we look at the second day of the NFL draft, the Cardinals made two picks. Obviously, the pick for Chase Bisontis isn't a bad value. Is not a bad value. I predicted he would be drafted in round one. Many mock drafts had him going in round one, but it did. Like, if we're talking kind of the plan for the Cardinals with their needs, and this is where we have sort of the issue with the draft, is the way it played out is that they didn't make the team better. They had two clear needs that they needed to address. Three, if you count quarterback: edge, tackle, and quarterback. And then while they got the quarterback earlier than we wanted them to get the quarterback. And then they didn't go edge, and they didn't get a tackle until round 7. Now, things didn't play out the way they didn't get to maneuver round 1 they wanted to. And then in round 2, the tackles were all off the board. There was no tackle worth taking at 34. So that was a disappointment. However, the question you have to ask is Chase Bisontis the right pick when you have edge guys, TJ Parker, R. Mason Thomas, Cassius Howell, and even Derek Moore, all on the board going within the next 10 picks, or pass rushing defensive interior guys, Caden McDonald, Kristen Miller. And the question comes is, should they have gone a different direction? That's, while I believe Bisontis is solid, the question is he significant? Is he an upgrade over Isaiah Adams even? Maybe, right? An upgrade over Isaiah Adams. And could they have improved their team more with one of these round 2 edge guys?
Well, and that's where the question really stands. And the other thing is this, Jess, and we talked about this in our text message thread with our buddies. He's never played right guard. Now he's played right tackle. So I don't want to be overly critical, but he's never played right guard. He's played a ton of left guard, and he's played a full season of right tackle. He's young, he's athletic, he's strong. Really needs to clean up the zone blocking. I talked to some people. They think the Cardinals run games are going to be closer to a 50-50, gap scheme and zone scheme. So like, he's good in gap scheme already. He's strong. He's athletic. He fits that profile. He's got to get better at his aim points in the zone scheme, but he's got all the requisite tools and things like that to get there. The question becomes, what do you do? Are you going to move your, prized free agent signing from left guard to right guard, which Isaac Seumalo has played a full season at right guard for the Philadelphia Eagles, but he was a Pro Bowler as a left guard? Or is Bisontis potentially the right tackle solution? All of these things are legitimate questions that we're not going to know the answer to until really training camp, and then we'll know the answer, and we'll not be able to tell you guys until their first preseason game, because unless it changes, and we don't think it's a Jonathan Gannon, Cliff Kingsbury, Mike LaFleur thing. We think it's a Mark Dalton, Michael Bidwill type of thing. The reality is we won't be able to pass along the information that we see via what happens at practice. So that'll be something that'll come afterwards. So that's what's going to be interesting about Bisontis. Again, the player, no issues. I don't think you and I really have a problem. We both liked him.
Do you think he is an immediate upgrade over Isaiah Adams, or is it a significant one?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't. I thought Adams had improved at the back half of the season. I thought, the Cardinals had kind of found something. I thought it was clear that once they got Isaac Ciamolo, they needed to address the right guard position, or sorry, the right tackle position. It didn't happen. It is what it is. Nothing you can do about it at that point. So the question becomes, what does the layout of this team look like? And if you're not getting the layout correct, then we really, I mean, the truth is then we won't know, right? Like, that's just it. We're not going to know how this is going to look until we get what the lineup looks like. And then once we see the lineup, then we'll know. Is he an immediate upgrade? I mean, it's always hard to say a rookie that's never played a position is going to be an immediate upgrade, even over a guy that, you know, has only played a solid, you know, 5 to 7 games in his career. It takes time to develop into an NFL player. It takes time to develop and learn the NFL speed of the game, power of the game, and block really talented players on other franchises. So like all of those things matter and will make a difference in how this is kind of plays out, right?
Yeah, and that for me, I still think that if it were up to me, I think I would have preferred like an R. Mason Thomas there. One of the probably the higher upside, at least sack producing edge guys. I know you're a big fan of Cassius Howell, but his measurables probably pushed him up down the board because of how, you know, you use Imani Ossenfort's a bot, right?
Yeah.
And he's not likely going to go with a Cassius Howell. I think I would have felt better if they'd have taken one of the. Now, obviously, they think that Bisontis is the better player. Okay, I can like, but if I'm looking at improving the team, I don't know. Like, will he? Hopefully, he beats out Isaiah Adams. If Love and Bisontis start and are good, hey, that's a good first 2 picks. However, I don't think it improves the team that much overall when you've got these gaping holes on the defense and they don't really address it. But the other pick, and we both, like, I will say, I said on this show, he was the quarterback I wanted the Cardinals to get. And we would understand if it was round 3, and that's Carson Beck, but we preferred it on day 3. We felt that his game experience, the amount of time that he's played, some of the physical traits that he had, his size and build lend itself more to what Mike LaFleur wants. But at the top of round 3, we would have preferred a more foundational piece. Like, again, you could have gone with another edge if you wanted to wait edge, because Auburn's Kieran Crawford was on the board. Romello Height, Texas Tech, was on the board. There were some receivers that you could have gone with. As Antonio Williams comes off the board, and Malachi Fields and Caleb Douglas, or the defensive tackle, you could have gone with Chris McKellen. It would have changed the things. Chris Brazo out of Tennessee, the receiver. A lot of receivers came off the board that round. And like the top of round 3 to get who your backup quarterback or third string quarterback, probably future backup quarterback, isn't ideal. We understood it because they needed to get a quarterback this draft. We understood that, but we would have felt it was a better value on day 3. So I don't have an issue with getting back. He was, for what the Cardinals needed this year, he was the perfect one, because I think as a player, I feel like he's going to be, at minimum, going to be able to be the type of guy that like a Matt Barkley was, or like these guys that stick around forever in the NFL and barely play. I think he has that sort of super high floor that he can start a few games, like almost like he's a Jacoby Brissett like he's a Jacoby Brissett type quarterback that you can add. I don't expect now. The funny thing is that as dreadful as we expect the Cardinals to be in 2026, you might see Carson Beck starting games. Now, I'm not gonna say this is gonna happen, but we have seen third-round quarterbacks go into a quarterback situation and take things over. Russell Wilson did that in 2012. But I like the pick to add to the quarterback room. I just didn't love it in round 3. But we understood why that might happen, because it's very possible he wouldn't have been there in round 4.
Yeah, and the thing that really came of everything is that once you see how the draft played out, I think you and I both agree that kind of made the pick worse, right? Like if you got him after getting, the tackle and a defensive end or a defensive end and a tackle, some combination of those things, I think you feel better about it. But the question about the value of Love, obviously, then you have the question about where Bisontis fits on the line in year 1, and then you get a guy that, I mean, if you're good, which you and I are not exactly thinking will happen, but theoretically, if you're good, won't see the field at all. Like all of a sudden you're like, all right, what the heck are we doing? Right. And so that's what the problem becomes with this draft, is that your first 3 rounds present very little value to a team that needed value in 2026. Now, again, I look at this draft as potentially it's going to help down the road. Obviously, you could get enough from Jeremiyah Love to see a lot this year. And you're hopeful that Bisontis is ready to go in year 1, plug and play, really kind of is a guy that fits immediately. But then to be like, hey, we need a rookie running back, a rookie offensive lineman, and a rookie quarterback to help us win games. I mean,
and not address the horrifically bad defense that they had.
Right. And that just makes things very difficult to stomach. And so, again, the issue with Beck is that there's, some question marks about his leadership. There are questions about his health, if the arm strength is ever going to come back. All of those are legitimate questions, and why you're more comfortable taking him at 104 instead of 65. But again, he wasn't going to get there. We know that now. So you had to do it then, or kind of reap the repercussions of not coming away with it, a guy in this draft, right?
Yeah. With that,
but also he was their top-rated quarterback.
Yeah. That's the quiet part. Is like, was it all along? Did they want Beck instead of Simpson anyway? Who knows? That's for Cardinals lore down the line if we ever get the information we want. And with that, we will wrap up this edition of the Rise Up Series podcast, our Cardinals Talk on the Web, reviewing days 1 and 2 of the draft. Our next show will be about the day 3 picks and the undrafted guys. But until then, that's Seth Cox. I'm Jess Root. Thanks for listening as always. We'll be back again soon.
Thanks for listening to the latest edition of the Rise Up See Red podcast. Listen to previous episodes and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Audioboom, or many other podcast platforms, so shows are delivered directly to your mobile device. Please give the show a 5-star rating and always support the sponsors who support the show. We'll be back soon for the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Rise up, Red Sea, be Red, See Red, and of course, Rise Up, See Red.